Hello folks, Jim Voss, high above my garage in Aiken, South Carolina, with I guess maybe probably the 30th production of Just My Opinion. Well, everyone right now is rattling their sabers, and we're all worried that China is going to push the button, or Russia's going to push the button, or we're going to push the button. We can't push the button because Krusty the Clown doesn't know where the button is, but that's a different story. You have to understand that the Savior, let's see, I guess it was by 1962, something like that. The Savior and the person who prevented the nuclear holocaust was no other than Tricky Dick Nixon. When he went over to China and made friends and shook hands and accepted the pandas and all this other good stuff, he brought us into the Cold War. The Cold War was mostly, we send our spies there, they send their spies here. We just kind of sit and hope that everybody's going to behave. Well, a lot's changed in that 60 years. A lot has changed in that 60 years. But you've got to consider something. Now, we have enough nukes to destroy the entire world. We have around 5,500. The Soviet Union has about 5,800. But China only has 300 nukes. Well, like I said, if you put all of those together, we could obliterate the entire world. Wouldn't make any difference. Putin and Xi are not stupid. I mean, they're kind of ignorant, but they're not stupid. They want to have a ruling class left after the war. Well, you don't have that. You're not going to survive nuclear winter. The majority of the people will die of cancer and radiation exposure and things of this nature. You won't be able to eat any meat. You won't be able to drink the water. You won't be able to drink the milk. You won't be able to do anything. They don't want an annihilation of the world. They still want a host of people here that they can rule over and become the New World Order or One World Order, whichever one you want to call it. So it doesn't make any difference if China says we're going to arm or help the Russians by arming them. That's a military thump in the chest. That's like when the bully gets up to you and he sticks your finger in your chest and he keeps telling you he's going to beat your ass, and that's all that is. Those of you who know your history, I want you to think back to the Battle of Midway, the turning point of World War II. And there's one faction of the Navy and of the military and of the Air Force that is our ace in the hole. That's all there is to it. Let's consider 13, 14, 15,000 miles away. In order to get your ordnance on your aircraft here, you got to have the aircraft carriers to move them. And once they're in the air, you've got to have the refuelers to refuel them. Now, that's what put the Maka high, and we sank 3 of Japan's 4 carriers, leaving them with that only one, and then we finally ended up hitting that one also. But you see, the aircraft carrier and the in-flight refueling tankers will win the next world war. Right now, everybody's talking about China, Russia, and the United States. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? If China and Russia jump the gun and think that they can win a ground war, an air war, or a sea war against us, please consider that NATO has 30 other nations that will turn on China and Russia. They're not going to side with either one of those two bullies. That's all there is to it. And China knows that, and Russia knows that. But you've got to understand the communist theology that's behind all of this, their dogma, their protocol for being the biggest badass on the street. Mother Russia. Well, Mother Russia sucks right now. Mother Russia's more like a bag lady in Los Angeles than it is the brass bitch that she used to be. Same way with China. China's got us outnumbered like 10 to 1 in population, but they don't have us outnumbered in what it takes to win a war. Let's set aside the nuclear weapons for just right now. Let's just put those aside. And I wrote down, I've been doing some research today, and I wrote down what will win the war. Now you think about this. Okay, we have to get our aircraft, we must get them to somewhere close to our enemy so that we can launch. And then we have to have in-flight refueling capability to get us from that point in the air, which would be point B, to the strike zone, which would be point C, and then back to D, refuel in the air, and then back to E, landing on the aircraft carrier. We are the only nation involved in this conflict that has everything that we need to kick ass when it comes to a conventional war. Let me tell you why. First of all, we have 11 aircraft carriers, including the new Gerald R. Ford. Nuclear. You do not have to it's not gasoline, but you don't have to resurface this carrier for 20 years. I mean, it's got 20 years of fuel on board. Never going to have to stop. And as long as you have the service ships around it, that ship never has to come back or go home to be refueled, reprogrammed, refurbished, or to have food put on board. Everything that they need, feeds. They have their what they call lighters. It's when a smaller aircraft is over here and he's transferring food and everything like that, and then he peels off, he goes back home, he picks up more. You get someone to take his place. This is a constant. But you think about it, we've got 11 aircraft carriers. Now, we have 9 more that are called helo carriers. So we have a total of 20 aircraft flat tops for either jets or helicopters, one or the other. Think of that, 20 of those with all the support that they need. Now, if China's going to get their aircraft onto their carriers and send their carriers towards the United States, they only have 2 aircraft carriers and 1 helo carrier. We have, 7 times more than the Chinese do in the way of, and their aircraft carriers are old and out of date. Russia would have the same problem because you see Russia only has 1 aircraft carrier. That's one of their new ones. And they only have 2 that are helo. Now they've got about 8 more that they claim that they can convert, but that would take 10 years. So those are out of the picture. We're not going to worry about those. So we're looking at us with 20, China having 3 carriers, and Russia having 1, possibly 2. If you can't get your aircraft onto the carriers and into the ocean and on their way to the objective, then you must be able to refuel in air, take them off from a land base in China or Russia, fly, and probably take 2 refuelings in the air just to get to the United States to bomb us. Now, I want you to think about this. I'll make sure I get it right. Russia only has 10 in-flight refueling aircraft. Only 10. We have 5,402 aircraft, including fighters, bombers, you name it. They only have 10 in-flight refuelers. You can't do it. You just can't do it. Those can refuel, the biggest one can refuel 4 aircraft at the same time. But you see, when he's out of juice, he's got to go back and fuel up again. They can't get many planes to the United States. China only has 30 in-flight refuelers. Only 30. So you might be able to get one squadron all the way from China to the United States or Russia to the United States off of these 10 tankers, the flying filling stations that we used to call them. Now, take into consideration that the United States has 568 in-flight refuelers. We could get all 5,402 aircraft to the other side of the world to fight a war in one trip. And then just as soon as they drop their bombs, we have them coming off of the carriers. Same thing. The carriers can be placed all over the world in striking distance of Russia and China. So you see, even though they think they're the big badass communist and the meanest kid on the block, they're not going to pull a nuclear holocaust off. They're just not going to do it. And they know good and well, I don't care how good their pilots are, when you don't have any planes, when you don't have any fuel in the air, you don't win a war. That's what won the war, or the turning point in the war, at Midway over 60 years ago. Just think about that. When we took out 3 of their 4 carriers, they were doomed. And we had got ours refurbished, refitted, and in the water. And we just hid and we waited. And then we launched all of our aircraft. You see, position is what wins a war. Position and attack. You got to have your resources, in-flight refueling, carriers, way to retrieve your people, and your planes. The only thing that Russia has going for it right now is they've got a new missile. I'm not sure if it was called the Spirit or a Spearhead or something like that. This bad boy flies 4 times the speed of sound, but it's not perfected yet. They got problems with it. China's going to triple its nuclear warhead capability, but it's going to take them 10 years to go from 350 to 1,000. And like I said, Russia's got about 200 more huge warhead missiles in the delivery system and everything. No one would survive, and I do mean no one. No food, no animals, no nothing. The soil, the crops, the water, nothing is going to survive a nuclear holocaust. They are not going to bring the world to an end. It's not what they want. They want to rule the world, and you can't rule when everybody's dead. So I just want to let you know where we stand as far as right now. Air superiority, superiority on the sea, superiority in the air, the ground, everything is in our favor. So the bottom line to this is, and the moral of this story is, don't screw with this U.S. Now, I would just feel a lot better if Mr. Trump was the one delivering these kind of messages. I believe that Trump would pick up the phone and he'd call Rudy Putin and Xi, and he would tell them, look, guys, you can beat your chest and rattle your sabers all you want, but you screw up and I will come and bomb your neighborhood. And he would stand fast, and he could bring them to their knees. Here's the problem. China has the money, but no technology. Russia has the technology, but no money. we have the technology and the money. So when we want something new, like these 6 new carriers that we have commissioned in the last 4 years, 6 different kinds of one nuclear sub. See, we can do that. They just don't have the money and or the technology to produce these weapons of war. We do. We're ready. We're well trained. So, it's kind of like Granny's Tater Patch. Just come on in and pick yourself a mess anytime you want to. Alright? So if you want to get your ass kicked, show out. Jim Voss, high above the garage. Retired military, 25 years. Proud of my vets. Love them, every one. Those serving, those that are retired, those that are just getting ready to go in, those that didn't come home. And for those who did come home, welcome home. High above my garage, Jim Voss with just my opinion. Aiken, South Carolina, nice balmy 70 degrees outside. I love you, I mean it, especially that lady back there in the 3rd row. Whew, mercy, you're fine. Take care. Let me find this button. We'll be off the air. And this will be posted tomorrow, so I hope you enjoy it. And I'm coming up with one that you're going to have to see. It's how woke, Fauci, Bill Gates, a few other things, the current administration, how this has worked together as a plan to overtake the United States and to cripple our economy and to take our leadership away. Okay? I love you a bunch. And smile.